Hello students, I am Nupur Roy and today I will take the class 12 chapter of English from the book Vistas chapter 5. The name is Should Wizard Hit Mommy by John Updike. So today I'll take from pages 48 to 51 and in my next session I will complete the chapter. So here you see in this story, the main character is Jo, who is a small girl, and the name of the father is Jack. Now here we start the story here. In the evenings and for Saturday naps like today's, Jack told his daughter Jo a story out of his head. So when did the father Jack tell the stories? In the evenings and for Saturday naps like today's. That is, that day also he was telling a story like the evenings and the Saturday naps. So what is a Saturday nap? What is a nap? Students, the meaning of nap is a short sleep. A short sleep. So here it is. The meaning is a short sleep. Like today's, what did the father Jack tell Jo a story out of his head? Means it was his creation. It was his own story. This custom means this habit began when he was 2. So this practice, this habit began when she was 2. That is when Jo was only 2 years old and was itself now nearly 2 years old. Now the storytelling part is now 2 years old. So now what is the age of Jo? That is 4 years. She is 4 years. And his head felt empty now continuously. If the father had to tell new stories every day, what had happened? His head was empty, means it had no more stories to tell. Now, each new story was a slight variation of a basic tale. A small creature, usually named Roger, Roger Fish, Roger Squirrels, Roger Chipmunk. So each new story that the father told Jo had a slight, very slight variation, means very slight difference of the basic format of the story. That is, in each story, there was a small creature and the small creature's name was every story Roger, and in the different stories he used to change the character. Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, Roger Chipmunk. So this is a Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, and this is Roger Chipmunk. Had some problem and went with it to the wise old owl. So this was the story, that every story had the character Roger, and he used to meet with some problem, and then Roger, you had to go to the wise old owl for proper advice. The owl told him go to the wizard. Now the wise old owl, when Roger went to the wise old owl, the owl told him to go to the wizard. Now who is a wizard? Wizard is a magician. And the wizard performed a magic spell. That is some kind of magic spell, magic change he brought that solved the problem. So that used to solve the problem. All the stories had the same story, that their problem used to be solved by the wizard. After the problem was solved, the wizard used to demand in payment a number of pennies greater than the number that Roger creature had. So every time the magician, the wizard, used to demand a payment, a number of pennies. These are the pennies. That is a very small amount of money which used to be greater than the number that the Roger creature had. But in the same breath, that is in the same story, same advice, the wizard used to advise further, directing the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found. So the wizard used to direct the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found. Then Roger was so happy he played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston. So after that what happened? Then the Roger was used to become very happy and he played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle. That is, it used to come whistling. The train comes whistling, no? That brought his daddy home from Boston. So Boston is a place in USA. Jack described their supper and the story was over. So Jack described their supper. Supper is what? It is a meal which is taken in the dinner time. And the story used to get over. Working his way through this scheme was especially fatiguing on Saturday. So Jack, to work in this way through this scheme, that is through this plan of the story, was especially fatiguing. Fatiguing, that is means tiring. He used to become tired. All right. On Saturday, because Joe never fell asleep. So he went on telling the story, but Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore. And knowing this made the ride seem futile. So, and knowing this made the ride means this ride means what? This practice seem futile. Futile means what? Useless. The little girl, not so little anymore, the bumps her feet made under the covers were halfway down the bed. So the little girl was now 4 years old. She was not any more little, and the bumps her feet made, that is all the curves which her feet made under the covers, means under the bed sheet or some kind of a comforter, were halfway down the bed. That is, she had become a tall baby. Their big double bed that they let her in for naps, and when she was sick, had at last arranged herself, and from the way her fat face deep in the pillow shone in the sunlight. So she used to remain awake in the Saturday naps also, and it shone in the bright face which was deep in the pillow. It shone in the sunlight, sifting through the drawn shades. It did not seem fantastic that some magic would occur and she would take her nap like an infant of 2. So Jack was wanting that something fantastic would happen, and the sunlight was shifting through the drawn shades, means the sunlight was peeping through the drawn shades, means the drawn curtains. And Jack was thinking that some fantastic thing to happen, some magic should happen, so that she can fall asleep like an infant of 2, that is like a baby of 2. Her brother Bobby was 2. So Joe had a little brother whose name was Bobby. He was 2 years old and had already asleep with his bottle. Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" So Joe, what did she say? Joe, of course, expected the same character, that is, it should be of Roger. Joe squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking that she was thinking. That is, she was very happy that her daddy would would tell her a story, and she shut her eyes and she was smiling that she was thinking of a fantastic story the father would be telling. Her eyes opened her mother's blue. "Skunk," she said firmly. So when her eyes opened, and her eyes were what? Well, they were same as her mother's blue eyes. She said, "Skunk," she said firmly. Now students, this is a skunk. A skunk is a cat-like animal which is found in USA, and this animal emits a very bad smell from its body. So this little girl Jo said Skunk, she said firmly. A new animal. They must talk about skunks at nursery school. So at nursery school, she must have heard about this animal skunk. Having a fresh hero momentarily stirred Jack to creative enthusiasm. So Jack was very tired of telling so many stories for 2 years. So having got this name Skunk, for a moment he got a very creative enthusiasm. That is, he got encouraged. He got more enthusiastic to create a new story about the Roger Skunk. All right, he said. Once upon a time. Now, students, let me tell you, this chapter is a story within a story. So, another story starts from here about the skunk. All right, he said. Once upon a time, in the deep dark woods, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk. So the story as it says that once upon a time what happened, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk. And he smelled very bad. That is, the smell of his body was awful. Yes, Joe said, he smelled so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. So Joe said that of course that animal smelled so bad that the other creatures in the woodland creatures, mean other creatures in the wood, would not play with him. Joe looked at him solemnly. That is, seriously, she had not foreseen this. So Joe was looking at her father solemnly, means seriously, and she had not foreseen this. That is, she had not imagined that this can happen, that there would be no friends of the little skunk. Whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with jest. Jest means with a lot of energy, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. So Jack also remembered his own childhood humiliations, that how he was humiliated because of some kind of awful smell which he had. All of the other tiny animals would cry, "Oh, ho, here comes Roger Stinky Skunk." So the other animals would cry out, "Oh, here comes the Stinky." That is the bad. Stink means what? A very, very bad, foul smell. Stinky Skunk is coming. And they would run away from him. And Roger Skunk would stand there all alone. And the two little round, you can see, round eyes, tears would fall from his eyes. So the little skunk would stand there all alone because no friends were there. All the friends used to run away. "Oh, my skunk, little Roger Skunk, you are very stinky. You are emitting bad smell." And this poor skunk had round tears would fall from his eyes. The corners of Joe's mouth drooped down and a lower lip bent forward as he traced with a forefinger along the side of her nose the course of one of Roger Skunk's tears. So the corners of Joe's mouth drooped because she became sad for the Roger Skunk, and her lower lip bent forward as she traced, as she could picturize along the side of her nose with her forefinger. She could think the course of one of Roger. She started imagining that how sad Roger Skunk would be, that tears were rolling down his eyes. Won't he see the owl? Now here you see, there in the beginning of the story only, that was the general format of the story, that there used to be some problem and the character had to go to the wise old owl. Now immediately little Joe says, "Won't he see the owl?" she asked in a high and faintly roughened voice. Now she could very well imagine that there a problem had come to the small Roger Skunk. So she knew that obviously he could go to the owl, to the wise old owl, for some kind of advice. Sitting on the bed beside her, Jack felt the covers tug as her legs switched tensely. That is, Joe was very much in tension that what would happen to Roger Skunk. He is being alone. He was feeling so lonely. So she was just tugging, means she was pulling as her legs was showing that she was in a lot of tension about Roger Skunk. He was pleased with this moment. He was telling her something true, something she must know, and had no wish to hurry on. So Jack was also very pleased with this moment. He was telling her something true, that what could happen with children and how they children should adjust with everything, and had no wish to hurry on with the story. But downstairs a chair scraped, and he realized he must get down to help Claire paint the living room woodwork. Now here you see, this Claire is the mother of Joe and the wife of Jack. So downstairs, Jack could hear that the chair was dragged, and he realized that he must go down and help Claire paint the living room woodwork. What work was she was doing downstairs? She was painting the living room woodwork. Well, he walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree, and in the tip top of the tree was an enormous wise old owl. So Jack continues with the story that who is he this? This is Roger Skunk. What did he do? He is Roger Skunk. What did he do? He went to a very big tree, and in the tip top of the tree, that is on the top of the tree, was an enormous, means what? A very big owl was sitting there, and it was wise old owl. Good, Mr. Owl, Roger Skunk said. All the other little animals run away from me because I smell so bad. So Roger Skunk said his problem to the owl, that all the little animals run away from Roger Skunk because he smelled very bad. So you do, the owl said, very, very bad. So the owl also accepted the fact that of course Roger Skunk smells very bad. What can I do? Roger Skunk said, and he cried very hard. So Roger Skunk was not ready to lose his friends, and he was desperate to get rid of that foul smell from his body. The wizard, Joe shouted. Now, Joe knows what will be the continuation in the story. She knew that after the wise old owl, Roger would go to the wizard. So she says, the wizard. That is, who is a wizard? A magician. Joe shouted and sat right up. She was in full suspense. She sits up, and a little golden book spilled from the bed. That is, a little golden book spilled means it fell down from the bed. Now, Joe, Daddy is telling the story. Do you want to tell Daddy the story? No, you me. So Daddy says that now you don't tell me the story that the Roger Skunk had to go to next to the wizard. So Daddy says that does she want to tell Daddy a story? No, you me. So what does Joe say? No, you me. That is, she tells Daddy that he would tell her the story. Then lie down and be sleepy. So he wanted her to fall asleep as in that Saturday afternoon and be sleepy. Her head relapsed into the pillow, and she said, out of your head. Well, that is out of your head. That is, continue with their story. Well, the owl thought and thought. So the story continues. Well, the owl thought and thought. At last he said, why don't you go to see the wizard? Why don't you go see the wizard? Daddy, what? Are magic spells real? Now she is getting very excited. She says, are the magic spells real? Now she is a tiny tot, no? She is so much uh, surprised with all this. She says that, are the magic spells real? This was a new phase just this last month, a reality phase. That is, this is a new phase in her. That is, she was growing up and she was able to analyze that whether magic spells are real, because she was so much impressed with the character of the wizard. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, "Do they really?" And when Claire told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted, with a slight yet eager smile. So when Jack, everything came out from his head to make up some story for his daughter. So when Jack used to tell that spiders eat bugs, she could not believe. She turned to her mother and asked that, do they really? That is, she had started analyzing it. Do they really? Do the spiders really eat the bugs? And when her mother, Claire, told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted, with a sly yet eager smile, "Is he really?" Now, when mother told that God was all around, is in the sky and all around them, at this also, Joe asked her father that, does God really exist? Is God really everywhere? They are real in stories, Jack answered. So what did Jack insist? That everything was real in stories, answered curtly. She had made him miss a beat in the narrative. So this is the owl said. Now the owl gives advice to the Roger Skunk. Go through the dark woods, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the creek. Now you see the direction was given to the Roger Skunk, that how he would go to the wizard. That is, he has to go through the dark woods and then go under the apple trees into the swamp. Swamp means some marshy land, over the creek. Creek is a river. What's a creek? A little river. Over the creek, and there will be the wizard's house. So what is this? This is the house. This is the direction to the wizard's house. Okay. So, over the creek, and there will be the wizard's house. And that's the way Roger Skunk went. And pretty soon he came to a little white house. So, where did he go? Over the river and down the through the dark woods, under the apple tree, where there was a swamp and there was a river. The wizard's house was there. And that's the way Roger Skunk went. And pretty soon he came to a little white house. And he rapped on the door. Rapped means he knocked on the door. Jack rapped on the windowsill. Now Jack is telling the story. So what did Jack? Jack also rapped, means he sat up and he knocked on the windowsill. And under the covers, Joe's tall figure clenched in an infantile thrill. So Joe was lying on the bed, no? So under the cover, she was just clenching. She was just holding in and such a lot of thrill, such a lot of excitement. Infantile means a childish excitement. And then a tiny little old man came out with a long white beard. So the wizard he was a tiny old man with a white beard and a pointed blue hat, and said, what's this? What you want? That is, what do you want? So what did the wizard say? That, what's it? What is it? This word is, what's it? What's it? And this is what? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? So immediately the wizard is asked, what's it? What do you want? You smell awful. So the wizard also realized that the skunk was smelling awful. The wizard's voice was one of the Jack's own favorite effects. Now all these lines are enacted by Jack the father. So these were his own favorite effects. He did it by scrunching up his nose, that is putting up his nose up and taking out that kind of voice of the wizard, and somehow whining through his eyes, and somehow his eyes were also showing the expression of the wizard, which felt for the interval rhyme. So which felt for the interval rhyme, that is, it was making a lot of sound and it was making a lot of change in his mouth. He felt being an old man suited him.